If you've struggled with stress, balance, or burnout, and simply feel discouraged or even defeated, and if you're ready to move from force to flow and enjoy ultimate Zen success in your career, health, or relationships, then the Zen Success Show is for you. Your host, Carissa Sims, is an entrepreneur, corporate consultant, best-selling author, meditation teacher, and healer who has found her own Zen success. Here's your host, Carissa Sims.
Welcome to this week's episode of Zen Success. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Asher Beckwitt. Hi.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, and what would you like to be called? Dr. Beckwitt?
Typically, actually, people call me Dr. Asher,
Dr.
but
Asher.
Asher or Dr. Asher is fine with me.
Yeah, I like that. I like Dr. Asher.
Thank you.
So let me share a little bit more about Dr. Asher, a public speaker, host of the Self-Healing After Trauma podcast, and author of the upcoming book, Healing Stories, 8 Steps to Self-Healing After Sexual Abuse. My journey is a unique one, her journey is a unique one, having survived personal and systematic trauma from childhood sexual abuse by a same-sex pedophile. She now uses her expertise to support survivors transform lives from wounded to wholeness. She is also a medical anthropologist and let's see what else. Her personal and professional experiences led her to develop the Self-Heal Framework, a transformative step-by-step process rooted in real-life healing journeys of sexual abuse survivors. This framework guides survivors to embrace their own healing by emphasizing essential elements such as safety, self-evaluation, learning, forgiveness, health, empowerment, alignment, and unconditional self-love. So happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me.
My pleasure. I would love to hear what inspired you to get your PhD and be such an expert in this field.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I really was inspired to help people. So actually, when I was an undergrad, I went to George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. And I was sitting there and I was watching people walk across the stage and get their hoods. And I was like, that's going to be me one day. I am going to do that. And what was leading that, what was motivating that inside of me was really this passion. And I knew that I was privileged. I knew that I was white and that I was female and that I had certain privileges in this world that other people didn't have. And I had the finances to be able to pursue a higher degree. And so I thought, well, what could be better? I'm going to get my PhD so that I can utilize that privilege to help others.
Oh, that's amazing. So, what's the main purpose of why you want to share your story?
So, my story, as you mentioned, is one of surviving same-sex pedophilia. And so that is a rare story. And it's not one that is really out there or one that is being heard or told very often. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's really two things. So, one, I really want people to know that abuse does not discriminate, that
Mm-hmm.
abuse, and particularly sexual abuse, can happen to anyone under any circumstances. And it doesn't matter who you are or what your sexual preferences or sexual orientation is. It can happen to anyone, anywhere within your
Mm-hmm.
family, within friends, within acquaintances. And so it is something that does not discriminate no matter who you are. And
Yeah.
the second part is just to bring awareness to this type of particular abuse, that this
Mm-hmm.
does occur and that there is such a thing as same-sex pedophilia, and that that has nothing to do with being LGBTQ plus. Your sexual orientation is very
Mm.
different
Mm.
from what happened.
Yeah.
Abuse is
It's
abuse is
it's
abuse, regardless.
yeah. it's a power play also or something, is what you're saying.
It is
And then
power.
for you in particular, was it a family member or friend of the family?
Yeah, it was a friend of the family.
Okay. And
Mhm.
because it was same sex, do you feel like did you go to your family and tell anyone, or did you feel like they might not believe you? And what was the situation around that?
Yeah, so I didn't talk about it for a very long time. And my family found out because it actually went on for 4 years. And then it happened when I was younger, and then it went on until I became an adult. And I went off to school. And one day I was sitting and I was talking with my friend outside of her dorm on a step, and I just happened to mention something, and she was like, "What?" She's like, "That's messed up. What's going on there?" And I didn't
Oh,
really
so you didn't
realize,
really know that it was a problem.
I didn't really realize how much of a problem it was
Okay.
because until I was sitting there with her. And then I had so much shame and I didn't want to talk to anybody really about it. And so, but one day I went home and it was, one of those weekends college kids go home and they do their laundry and things like that. So I went home to go do my laundry and pick up some cans of food and some ramen. And I happened to get my mail. And I went back to my dorm and I was sitting there and I was reading through my mail and I saw that all this money was missing from my bank account. Well, what I found out is that not only had she abused me sexually, but she also stole my entire life savings that my grandparents had set up from the day that I was born. And I was supposed to pay my tuition from all of that. And I got my bank account and saw that there was nothing there. And this was after I had already cut off communications with her. So I had to go home over Thanksgiving break.
Um,
And that's when I had to tell my mom, "Mom, look, she stole all of this money from me." And my
yeah.
mom still didn't know what had happened. And my mom looks at me and says, "Somebody told me that she's gay, and I hope that you're not."
Ah,
And I said, "Oh, I
that's not the
am."
thing to say.
So it was a pretty tough way to come out.
Yeah. Yeah. So at that point, when you told her she had stolen the money, your mom knew that she had abused you.
Yes, yes. And apparently, I think she had known about it, and had tried to do things about it, but there wasn't much that she could have done.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Interesting.
Mhm.
It's interesting, the parents' reaction. I know when I told my dad, I mean, I was really young. I was like 5 when I told my dad about my abuser, and
Mm.
and he just ignored it and said, "You're fine, nothing happened." So it's kind of interesting, our parents, and later I realized, well, he was sexually abused and physically abused in Jesuit school.
Ah,
So he had his own issues come up for him when I was telling him that it happened to me, you know.
okay.
And
That makes a
then
lot of sense. Yeah.
yeah, so it's just kind of interesting. And then I never told my mom because, well, they were divorced at the time. And I just thought, well, nothing happened. It's nothing, it's not a big deal. So, and then it's like you hold on to that shame. I think I held on to that shame and kind of like repeated this victim pattern. And in college, I was roofied and raped,
Mm.
and I didn't tell anyone because I was at a bar, so I had the shame of like, oh, it was my fault, you know and I think that carried forward from the early abuse. Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. And probably compounded all of the shame and things that you were feeling. Absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah. So at that point that you shared all of this, I mean, it was kind of like, in a way, a blessing, but also so awful to be stolen from. I mean, you had your innocence stolen, you've had everything stolen from you. And then on top of that, your money. everything. I mean, to have her access, how violated did you feel?
Oh, I mean, every ounce of me was completely violated. It was so bad to the point where I could barely exist on a day-to-day basis. And I actually went to several different attorneys to try to pursue getting my money back. And I was living in Virginia at the time. And what I was told back then was that because the laws were the way that they were, and because I was over the age of 18, that if I had decided to press any kind of charges against her, that then the state of Virginia could actually press charges against me for being gay. And so I couldn't
That's
do anything.
illegal.
Hmm. Yep.
Wow. I'm so naive.
Hmm.
So then
Yeah.
at that point, you did not press charges because of
No,
that.
I mean, I couldn't deal with that. I mean, I was already dealing with so much shame from everything that had happened, and I was dealing with so much fallout, and then I was dealing with a lot of stuff with my family, and I was trying to just keep going in school at that point, and I was barely making it. It got so bad to the point where I developed an ulcer, and I could barely sit through class, and I would just literally carry around a bottle of that Mylanta stuff, that and I would literally sit there and just chug it throughout class because my stomach was just on fire. I
Mm.
couldn't hardly hold it together. I became highly suicidal, and I have was pretty much on suicide watch by my friends for a long time after. And I was just really a mess. It was a really bad time. And so the thought of being able to go forward and be able to pursue a legal situation and have that whole case out there and then try to get the money back and all those things. There was no way I could go through all of that.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I understand. I think you made the right, well, this is the only decision you could make at that time physically, but I
Mhm.
do think it was the right decision, you know. So
Yeah.
I was wondering, how did you start your healing journey? Was there something that clicked in you? Did your friends say something in you that made you realize you're ready to face this now?
Yeah. So this went on for a long time where I just kind of suffered from a lot of depression and anxiety and shame and things. And there was other kinds of abuse that I suffered from as well. And so it was compounding all of it. And at one point, I just decided to try therapy, and I got into therapy, more formalized, psychotherapy. And I tried a bunch of different therapists. In fact, I had like 36 different therapists that I went to at one point because I couldn't find a therapist that worked well with me. And finally, I landed on one, and she was fantastic. And I saw her for many, many years. I mean, I saw her for like, I don't know, 15, 20 years. Like, she was incredible. And
That's a long time.
it
That's
was very,
amazing.
very long time. Yeah. And we talked and talked and talked and talked and talked, and and that was great, and that was wonderful, and I got a lot of support from her and a lot of reinforcement for things. But therapy, and is particularly talk therapy, is one modality, and it can be very helpful, but there are also other modalities that can be really helpful. So what eventually got me into healing, though, and that healing journey, was just the point of no return. Like, I was at the point where I needed to be medicated, and I just really, I mean, I had no other choice. It was either kind of that or death at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. It had gotten so dark. You
Yeah.
had a choice point, die or heal.
Yeah.
And now look at you helping others heal.
Trying to. Yes.
Your inspiring methods. So we've got there's talk therapy where you talk available that's available to people. And then what are other types of therapy that you think have been helpful to you or that you apply with your own clients? Let's talk about that a little bit because I do healing. I do spiritual healing. So I have a belief system that talking about something is okay, but it's also time to like forgive and send love and then move on. So that's my opinion about talk therapy. But I'd also love to hear your opinion.
Yeah, so talk therapy is wonderful, and I think it's a great place to start in many ways, and it helps folks to start opening up. And there are many different types of talk therapy, like there's cognitive behavioral therapy, there's, dialectical behavioral therapy. There's many different kinds of talk therapy. And so it really depends on what you're dealing with as a result of it. So, sometimes you're dealing with some anxiety issues, other times you're dealing with, more depressive kinds of things. And so it just kind of depends on what your specific situation is. But I also believe in other modalities. So part of my degree is it's medical anthropology. And so I look at Western and non-Western medical based practices and what is the complement of both of those and how can we use both of those to really have this whole health. And I'm not just talking holistic health, I'm talking whole health, whole body, whole mind, body, spirit, whole every financial, whole social, every whole health, right? So one of the things that I utilized that was really helpful for me, and this was around the time that I was actually getting separated from my ex, is I started what's called EMDR. And that has been incredible. It's eye movement, rapid disease, rapid desensitization and reprocessing, or something like that.
I
And
have heard others talk about how successful it is. So go on. Yes.
yeah, and it's something that doesn't necessarily work for everyone. There are people it doesn't work for, but there are definitely folks who it does work for. And for me, I'm one of those people who've been internally blessed in that it worked very well for me, and it
Mm,
helped
amazing.
me to really go and process those memories to the point where now I can think about those memories and they're just neutral. I don't have triggers anymore. They're not loaded. I'm not back in those places. And really what it does is kind of like magic. People call it magic. I call it magic. It is like magic. It's kind of weird. And as a scientist, it's really like I can't make sense out of it, to be honest. But it really reprograms your brain and it helps that trauma to be able to not be so loaded and to not feel so heavy. So it's changed the entire way that I look at my whole life. So I went into really intense EMDR. And then the other thing that I've done is I am also certified as a trauma energetics coach. And so I do a lot of somatic work, so a lot of body based work because trauma gets stuck in your body physically and it doesn't have a place to release. And so we carry that with us day to day. And in order to get it out, there are movements that we can do. And then there are also other activities and things that we can do to release that trauma. And as you do that, that also can really help you on your healing journey. So all of those in complement have worked really well for me.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. And, you know, it feels like some of that somatic therapy could be analogous to Qigong or Tai Chi because
Yes.
is it? Oh,
Well, there are elements of it
yeah.
in Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga. But there's also other movements that are taken from other practices too. So it's kind of like an amalgamation of all of these different
Oh,
things. Yeah.
amazing. And
Yeah.
then you also have the aspect that you're doing where you're focusing on a specific trauma that's being held somewhere in the body versus like necessarily the whole body or getting like a workout or whatever it might be. Um,
Right.
but I do feel like those practices I really resonate with, and I agree with you that this trauma can get stuck. I actually feel like the sexual abuse that happened to me, I felt like it was stuck inside of me
Mhm.
in my womb and I had to release that.
Absolutely.
And I didn't even think about that. Even as a healer, even as I'm healing other people, I needed to be healed.
Yeah, I mean, it literally, like, there are scientific studies and things like it literally gets stuck in your tissues, like, and
Okay.
on cellular bases and things. Like, you can see how things are programmed. I mean, it honestly leads to a lot of chronic disease and problems and fibromyalgia and other kinds of pain and all kinds of issues down the line. So
Yeah.
it's something that you want to release because your body gets overwhelmed, your nervous system gets overwhelmed. As it gets overwhelmed, it releases chemicals and then into your brain, and so literally it gets trapped. And if you haven't read the book by Bessel van der Kolk, The Body Keeps Score, that is a wonderful book, and that explains all of what I'm talking about here, plus a whole lot more. And I was actually trained through the Somogetics program. And so it's a wonderful program, and we do targeted kinds of trauma healing by targeting different point targeting different points in your body. But it's not, we're not holding hands above you, we're not doing any of those kinds of things. It's not Reiki. It's more, we're talking. We can do it over Zoom. We can talk to you, and we can have you kind of identify, like what you just said, where are you feeling this in your body, and then help to question you to help you to release it.
Oh, I see. I see. Wonderful. Well, I'd love to hear about your book. Is it released yet? Healing
It is not
Stories?
released yet.
Not
I am
released.
hoping
Okay,
in the spring.
upcoming. Okay, the spring. Okay. Well, but it's wonderful that you've already written it, right?
I am actually in the process of finalizing it, of writing
Finalizing
like
it.
the
Okay.
final chapters now. That is what I'm working on now. Yes.
Okay. So
Yes.
what is the theme of this book and your inspiration behind coming out with it?
Yeah, sure. So I have been a researcher for over 24 years now. And so I am actually a qualitative researcher. So, like Brene Brown, I gather people's stories and things. And so I've been researching trauma and chronic disease and illness and things like that, even for like the National Institutes of Health and Centers for Disease Control and some of these larger organizations and things. And so I've noticed a lot of trends around trauma. And it was really resonating with me, especially as a sexual abuse survivor. And it just kind of came, it was actually more of like a divine message, like take these skills and utilize them to then be able to talk to other survivors and highlight the healing journeys. So we hear a lot about what people go through in terms of the actual trauma, but we don't know a whole lot about how people actually heal, right? We have
It's so
theories,
true.
and we have other people saying this is how you should heal, but we don't have people saying this is my lived experience. This is how I actually have healed. This is what I'm doing to heal. So,
Hmm.
what I'm doing in my book is I have interviewed 9 survivors. I'm going to interview one more and then wrap it up, and about their healing journeys and what that has looked like. And then what I'm doing is, and what's been beautiful is out of that has emerged what is called the self heal model. And so it is completely like 100% survivor based model. And it is based off of these survivors' real life healing journeys and what they have gone through, their personal real life experiences of how they've built things like empowerment and resiliency and self compassion throughout the healing process. And so each part is broken out into a step like safety and how evaluation and learning and forgiving, and then being able to have health and empowerment and alignment and learning to love themselves and others unconditionally. And so what has emerged is all of these different strategies of survivors and from their own experiences of how they have created these different pieces of their journey.
Oh, that's so exciting. And you just light up, by the way. I feel your passion for this. So that's incredible. And TED Talk for you coming,
I
maybe?
would absolutely love to. And
Yeah.
I do feel really blessed to have the opportunity to have people open up to me about their journeys and,
Yes.
go so in depth into their healing journey, and to be able to bring that light to the world, because we have enough darkness. And, I understand that people are, there is a lot of darkness out there, but people also need to realize that healing is possible and that there are multiple ways of getting there.
Mm. Yeah, wonderful. And what do you want others to take away after reading it?
Yeah, I really would love for people to read through it and figure out what resonates with them. So, what are they feeling internally as they read through these other people's strategies? Or what kind of creativity does it inspire within them? So they might read through someone else's story and go, oh, that might not work for me, but if I put this little twist on it, that might work for me. Because really healing is you have to create your own healing journey, right? It's a creative kind of process. It's not something that you can just lay out and have this linear, here's how everyone heals kind of process. It's your own process, but it's done in community. And so by coming together and by hearing other people's stories and other people's strategies, and we can share within that, and we can borrow little tips and things from that, and then create our own healing journeys.
Yeah, that's amazing. And another thing I wanted to mention is on your website. Do you want to mention your website?
Yes, thank you. So I would love for folks to stay in touch and reach out, and I'm happy to offer workshops. And I also do a lot of public speaking around this, and I do workshops on like the different components of the self-heal model. And so if you go to www.asher, A-S-H-E-R, Beckwitt, B-E-C-K-W-I-T-T, not T-H, but T-T.com, then you can get in touch with me, and folks love to book speaking engagements to talk about different aspects, either of my story or of these components of the self-heal model.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, what I wanted to say on your website that you have is also a community, and
Yes,
that I felt like that is so important that you're not in this alone. Of course, you can come up with what healing journey works for you, but also come together, share, and connect.
absolutely. And healing in community is really the only way to truly heal. You cannot heal on your own.
Yeah, it's like that, not a final step, it could be initial step, but when you start opening up and you feel people's hearts and know that you're truly loved and you don't have to be afraid anymore, it's just incredible.
Yeah. And one of the beautiful things is to have a safe community where you can feel seen and heard for exactly who you are.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. And so Dr. Asher provides that too. So she does have a community that's amazing. And how do you feel how is trauma perceived based on the society we live in?
Yeah, so unfortunately, and we see a lot of this in the media and with public figures and things like that, folks seem to be shamed around their trauma, and those
Yeah.
who survive trauma are oftentimes trauma blamed or trauma shamed. And so we take it out on the person who has experienced this versus saying, wait a minute, you're the perpetrator, you're the person who did this offense,
Uh-huh.
and holding people accountable. We tend to not hold them accountable and instead shame the victim. So that contributes a lot to the shame and also the embarrassment and not wanting to acknowledge your own abuse. I've experienced that with many of the survivors and even myself that I've talked to who didn't want to acknowledge that they were abused for most of their life because of all of that shame and embarrassment from society.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I did have that. It's only been in the past few years, actually, getting cancer was how I started to really talk about it out in the openly. And that was about 4.5 years ago. And so I kind of went back and forth where I was embarrassed, but also I didn't want to be, now this is like one of my issues, didn't want to be associated with the Me Too movement. Like, oh, I'm not a victim, I'm better than that. I'm like way over. This is like no big deal. This is a blip in my life. you know, so I really minimized it for most of my life. So that was kind of interesting.
Mhm, mhm. And it's interesting how we kind of do that. I mean, I did that too. We kind of put it to the side and say,
Uh-huh.
I really didn't have that much of an impact, and as you unpack what I have found, at least in my journey, is that it does have much more of an impact than we may initially think. And so, really acknowledging the trauma is the first step, just acknowledging that it happened. And then after that, just finding safety within yourself, because when you are violated, there are many forms of abuse, in my opinion, and I've suffered through many of those forms of abuse. But what I consider the most violating form of abuse is the sexual trauma, because it's not just the sexual act and the physical act. It is also the mental act and the
Yeah,
control
manipulation.
piece and the power and all of it. And it is, to me, the most violating of all forms of trauma. And so when you experience something so violating, it is soul violating is what I call it.
Soul,
And
yeah.
soul
SOUL. Mhm.
violating. Yeah. And it is something that it blocks you from accessing your soul and accessing your essential self when you are violated on that level. And
Mm,
when we try to push it aside and dismiss it and diminish it and say, well, it really didn't have that much of an impact, we're really denying who our essential self is and our souls, because it
uh-huh.
really had that deep kind of level of pain at that level, at that soul kind of level. And in order to heal that, one of the first things that we have to do is to create that safety within inside of ourselves to be able to experience that deep, deep, deep pain, to be able to access our essential selves and our souls again.
Mm, that's so beautiful. Well, what's the best advice you wish you had that you learned through your healing process?
Yeah, so for me, it's really interesting. For me, it has been more of a spiritual journey than what I thought that it ever would be.
Yeah.
And it has allowed me to not only access my soul, but it has allowed me to access my soul in relation to, for me, that's God. All right. For others, it's, the universe or the earth or, some divine piece.
Yeah. Angels, their guides,
Angels, fairies,
ascended
right?
masters, right?
Ascended masters, right? But whomever that is for you, right? It has allowed me to have a much deeper connection with God and with my higher spirits. And that has been the deepest and most meaningful relationship I have ever had, and the deepest and most meaningful love that I have ever been able to give and receive.
Mm, that's incredible. And then I'd love to hear more about your podcast, Self Healing After Trauma. So, when did you start that?
I actually started it in February of 2003. So it's been a little, actually, wait a minute, 2000 and yes, I think it was 2003.
Okay.
I have to remember it back, but we're on a little bit of a hiatus at this point.
Hiatus. Okay.
We are transitioning right now to focus a little bit more on sexual trauma. So we will be coming
Oh,
back.
wonderful.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what is Zen success to you?
Oh, just really being able to tap into that higher power and be one with
Mhm.
all of
That's
it.
deep.
Yeah.
So beautiful. It's been such a pleasure connecting with you. Thank you for sharing your story and all of your heart and your upcoming book, Healing Stories: 8 Steps to Self-Healing After Sexual Abuse. I'll put your website and how to order your book in the future, but at least I'll put your website. So thanks for being on my show today.
Thank you so much. It's been such a blessing to be here, and I wish you the greatest success with your show and really appreciate this opportunity.
My
Yeah. Thank you
pleasure.
very much.
That's it for today's episode of Zen Success. Head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show and share with friends. Be sure to head on over to ZenSuccessShow.com to help you on your Zen success journey. And join us on the next episode. May you find your own Zen success in life.